This program is a collaboration of personal opinions and individual free thought. It does not represent the views or narrative of the mainstream corporate media hacks. Viewer discretion is advised.
And here we go.
Live from the bell tower, taking a stand for your rights, your liberties, and all the bullshit in between. You're listening to Break the Bell Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Monday night. It is after 7 o'clock, and it's time for the live edition of the Break the Bell Podcast.
Hello, beautiful bell breakers.
Bill, you're back.
I am, and I feel like I was gone a week, and it feels like the whole world went to shit.
It kind of did, actually.
Yeah.
The show went to. I had Dan Smots of The System is Down on,
man.
so the world went to shit when he's on.
Digging deep.
Yes. Is your mic? What's going on? It's
I don't know.
super quiet.
Is it?
I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I think I'm going deaf.
Can you hear me?
I can now.
Okay.
So, Bill, you're back. We don't have to deal with the likes of Dan Smots talking about... you missed it, though. We talked about the Clinton body count.
I know, it sounded
last
like
week.
a fun one.
It was a fun one. We dug a little deep and talked about some of the recent Clinton suicides, and then we dug into some of the past, the 80s and 90s
greatest
Clinton.
hits.
So, the greatest of Clinton suicides. So,
Yes.
so it was a fun one. I haven't been added to that list just yet, but that's my goal.
It's still
ultimately.
early. It's still early.
Yeah. We determined last week that our goal for this show now is to be put on the Clinton list. So
Okay. I like it.
we're not there yet, but we're working hard. We're working diligently. So
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, maybe this week will be the week. Who knows? So Bill, you're back.
Yes.
You feel good to be back?
I do, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And it almost felt like someone was stopping me from coming, though, because I had all these car issues and all this crap. And
Oh yeah, you were at 6 o'clock. You're like, my wife just broke down. I might not make it. I was like, good God, Bill. I'm going to have Dan back on again, it sounds like. But no,
Yes.
we're here. It's just you and me, so
Yes.
that's good. That's the
is.
way we like it. So
Definitely.
this week we've got an interesting one. It's almost a throwback of sorts because
Yes.
we're talking about previously what I thought was a debunked theory.
Right.
Last I heard, it was a debunked theory, the whole lab leak theory.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
now all of a sudden it's not debunked anymore.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, it just kind of like the social distancing and the
Right.
shutdowns and how they're just like, well, guys, how would we have had a clue that none of this would have actually had,
Right.
like, we were completely wrong on all this and you guys were right. And maybe we should have some sort of amnesty period where you guys don't treat us like shit the way we treated you like shit at the beginning of this. Well, now this whole lab leak thing comes out and we've got two agencies, the FBI and the
Yep.
Department of Energy, which is
Yeah.
two very random
Right,
departments.
right.
They're
And
like, no, it definitely most
Yeah.
likely
And I heard
was.
someone come out and they were like, well, they're not exactly health experts, so we can't really put a lot on what they're saying.
But we've come to find out that we can't put a lot on the health experts
Well,
either.
exactly. I think that's our big lesson for everything that's
Yeah, so
happened.
who do we put it on? If we can't trust the health experts, we can't
Right.
trust the intel, we can't trust the government, obviously. So who are we trusting in all of this?
Yeah, Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Well, obviously, I mean, that condescending dipshit
Yeah, right.
is obviously the voice of reason in all of this. So this week we're going to talk about the lab leak theory
Yes.
a bit. I mean, obviously, we're not going to make this like a throwback COVID episode because,
No,
we've done enough of those.
We've done enough of those. And to be honest, when I saw the headline of this, my first thought was, it's like on Facebook when you see a headline of a celebrity who died, but he actually died 5 years ago, and you're like, oh, I thought he already died.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I felt when I saw the
Yeah,
headline.
it's like what do they call that? The Mandela effect.
Yeah,
it's like,
right,
I thought we already knew that.
Yeah,
It's
right.
like, we did, but they refused to admit to that. But now, little by little, it's like they're coming out. They're not going to completely reverse on this
No.
immediately and be like, oh, by the way,
Yeah.
No, they're going to start releasing little bits and pieces. The media is going to come out and reverse course and be like, "We never said that at all.
right.
We actually said this, and those people were the ones."
Yeah.
They're already doing that. So we're going to talk about all that. And I guess my question, I'll start out at the beginning. Ask the question: is this just a way for them because they feel the need to be transparent? Is that what this is? They're like, after doing our due diligence, we want to be transparent with the public. Do you think that's what this is all about?
No, not at all.
No?
I think that what they're doing now is they're trying to build a case against China.
Oh yeah, that's where I'm
Yeah,
going with this.
Yeah. And they're like, well, no, they're the bad guys.
Yeah, you remember the balloons, right?
Yeah, right.
You remember now
Yeah,
the
COVID
the
was all
COVID,
them.
It was them.
all them.
It's telling when it's the FBI.
Yeah.
That's now if it was the CIA, it would be even more damning.
Right.
But still close enough. It's the intel
Yeah.
agency coming out and saying, guys, we have every reason to believe this came from China.
Yeah.
And it's like, really? And we're trusting the FBI.
Yeah, right,
The
right.
FBI out of all
we
people.
have a memo here that says "fuck you, USA."
in it was COVID in a
Yeah,
vial.
right.
Yes, because the FBI has such a long history of transparency.
Right. Yeah. That's who we should.
So that's who we
yes.
should base this on. Isn't it interesting though? Again, we're at this point where it's just like the government comes out and they're like, "This was definitely not a lab leak," and we're like, "Oh, this definitely was," because they said it wasn't. And then they come out and they're like, "Yeah, well, maybe it was," and we're like, "But was it?"
Yeah. Right.
It's like it's a skeptic,
Yeah.
ongoing skeptic in us will not trust them, and rightfully so. I mean, what have they given us to trust? And
Right.
so when they come out and release something saying, guys, the thing that you said, yeah, that's true. You got to step back and ask yourself, well, why? If it is true and they are being true, why are like what is their motivation
Right.
behind telling us this?
Yeah.
And it's definitely not transparency.
Right.
We can just throw that one out the book.
That's the last thing
Yes.
it is.
John Wood is here. John
Hey,
says,
John.
I think they're trying to save their jobs because the truth is coming out. Maybe.
I think right now it's they're trying to one up themselves. Like, okay, who can not like China the most, right? Is it the Republicans or the Democrats?
Yes.
So
Yeah. We'll get further into
Yeah.
that after this. Obviously, we got to get through the pre-show. We got to mention, check us out all over social media because we're on social media.
right.
Still, surprisingly, we did
Yes.
get, and the thing about this whole lab leak reversal that irritates me the most is, when are we going to get our freaking accounts back? That
Right.
all of us got banned,
Yeah.
and for medical misinformation, for fake news, for whatever they were calling it back then. How many of those accounts do you think are going to
Right.
get reversed
Yeah.
now that the
Oh,
FBI
none.
has come out and been
None.
like, oh, there's a good chance of it?
No.
No, they're not going to be like, oh, we were wrong.
Yeah.
Here's your account back. No, it's just going to quietly like seep into society and become a normal thing. It's like,
Right.
oh yeah, we knew all
Yeah.
along
Yeah.
that this was. And it's
You'd be
just like,
but what about my account? Be like,
it's
we
like
don't
what
know
account?
you're talking about?
I don't know what account
Yeah.
you're talking about.
Show us the account.
You're the crazy conspiracy theorist that made us question this in the first
Right.
place. You're the reason why we questioned the lab
Yeah.
leak and didn't give it any I don't know. We'll get into all that shit.
Yeah.
So it's all a bunch of horse shit.
I even saw a commercial, and this blew my mind. I was watching Tubi, and it came on, and they have this new thing where it's like, need to know now. And they're like, if you're one of the 20% of Americans who could be drastically affected by COVID, you need to check out this website. If you have diabetes or asthma or
Oh,
overweight.
fuck.
Yeah, right? I know.
You mean the things that we said in
Yes.
2020?
Yes.
The things that
Yeah.
were like, hey, if you have these existing conditions, you
and they
are
were all
at risk.
celebrities.
Of course.
Pink was out, and she's like, "Oh, I had asthma." And
Oh,
then
I
they had
did
this
see
other-
that one. And
Yeah,
I
did
was
you?
pissed.
Okay, yeah.
I was so
Yep.
freaking. It was like late at night.
Yes,
I think I was
yes.
watching Tubi too because
Yeah.
I downloaded it to watch some documentary. I can't remember.
Oh yeah, you told me about it. It was the pale horse guy.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. And I saw that, and I almost threw something at
Yeah.
my damn TV. And then I was like, I'm not gonna give them satisfaction of me breaking my
Yes,
TV. So,
yes.
but yeah, I was pissed. I was like, are you freaking
Yeah.
kidding me? All this to say, we are on social media currently as we're sitting here.
Roundaboutly.
As far as we know.
Yes.
So go like, subscribe, share this shit far and wide across the social media. You can find us at our handle on all the major platforms at Break the Bell Pod, or you can go to our website, www.breakthebellpod.com. You can find access and links to all the social media accounts and everything else we do, including our store, which has awesome merch. Awesome merch. Like the I Won't Eat Your Bug shirt, the We Are Not Your Pawns, some mugs, some T-shirts with our logos, all kinds of stuff. We used to have a COVID mask, but
Yes.
I think I axed that because I was like, this is stupid.
Although I think you should have a T-shirt that says like this was not released from a lab.
Yes, the shirt wasn't released from a lab. Yeah, so you can find links, like I said, to our merch and all our social media at breakthebellpod.com. Support us out a little bit more if you feel the need to do so. If you really like us and you want to look freaking awesome wearing some of our coolest shit, buy some of that merch at breakthebellpod.com. Otherwise, I think that's about it for the pre-show.
Checked all the boxes.
I think so. Do you want to get right into this
Yeah,
and
let's
talk
do it.
about the reversal on the lab leak theory?
Yes, definitely.
We'll be right back after this brief intro video.
What did you say?
You talking to me?
What the heck are you talking about?
What did you say?
What did you say? What did you say?
Are you talking to me?
Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me?
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
What are you saying?
What did you say?
Are you talking to me?
Well, maybe he was talking to me.
What did you say?
Talk to me.
What in heaven's name are you talking about?
Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me, baby.
What did you just say?
What did you say?
You talking to me? You talking to me?
Are you talking to me?
What the hell are you talking about? Who are you talking to?
Bill, you got to learn to lean the other direction.
I know it's my gangster lean. It's
Yeah, but
genetics.
gangster lean the other way. You're always blocked by the logo. And yes, I do like to hide your face, but this time it's not intentional. So, it's March now. March 2023.
Yes.
It's like literally officially 3 years since
Yes, that's crazy.
COVID shut down the entire planet.
Yes.
Because that was like late February, early March. It was like March when
It was the week. It was like a couple days before St. Patty's Day.
Okay, so
Yeah.
like right now, literally
Yeah,
right now.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So shut down. The world as we know it
Yes.
shifted directly in front of our eyes. It wasn't like a slow shift. It was just like it was
All
kind
of
of
a
like
sudden,
9/11, where you
Yeah.
look at it, you watch it,
Right.
and you're just like, everything's gonna be fucking different now.
Yeah.
And everything is.
Yeah.
And we started the show on the front end of COVID. We were like dead in the throngs of the shutdown. And we're like, all right, we got to talk about this shit. And then the George Floyd shit happened, and the elections
off.
happened, and all this shit happened. But all this whole show started around
Yeah.
the start of COVID.
Yeah. And you can't talk about this movement, right?
Yeah, like I almost named the show the New Normal Podcast
I remember
because
that, yes.
because everybody it was a trending hashtag, the New
Right.
Normal. So
Yeah.
it's just like, what a better way to instantly get our name out there? But somebody already took it ahead of us. So
That figures.
so we ended up with the next best thing, I guess, or better thing, which is Break the Bell Podcast.
Absolutely.
But 3 years ago, we had lockdowns. We've had mask mandates. We've talked about all these countless times. We've had the economic shutdowns, the economic reopening, which turned into the shipping crises and the financial crises, and
We had
vax mandates, vax
people
non-mandates.
laid off, people working from home.
Right.
I mean, we had an co-worker that wouldn't come to work because he was afraid to get it.
Yeah,
And so-
supposedly, even
right.
though like we found out he was out like shopping and
Right,
shit, but
yeah.
he just didn't want to come to
Right.
work.
But we had customers that were like, "Yeah, we don't want you to come here
Yeah.
until things even out, or we're closing down." Or
We heard of people that were like in 2021, we're like, I just went outside for the first time in
Yeah,
a year.
yeah.
We're like, what?
Yes.
The hell are you talking about?
Yes, I was doing an install on these. It was an older couple, and it was when the vaccine first came out. And they're like, "Yeah, we haven't seen our kids or grandkids since this whole thing started." I'm like, "Are you
It's like,
serious?"
well, you're an idiot.
Yeah,
You're a
right.
fucking idiot. from the very beginning of COVID, it was almost immediately conspiracy theories out the ass.
Oh, yeah.
And I loved it because I'm a conspiracy theorist. And there was the vaccine was made by Bill Gates. We perpetuated that one.
But there was a period of time where we took it serious.
I mean, as serious as we take
Yeah,
things.
right.
Like,
But I mean, there was a time I was coming home from work and I was stripping down, putting my clothes in a bag, taking a shower, had some Germ-X on me, and
there was at the very least, like in the back of your head, it's like you get a sniffle and you're like, am I gonna die today? Is this it?
Well, I didn't want, am I gonna kill my kids? I mean, so I don't know how long. Maybe it was a week, maybe 2 weeks.
It wasn't long.
It wasn't
very
and
long.
then I was like, wait a minute.
And then they kicked us out of the gym and we're like, fuck this. This is stupid. Let's
place
start
is
a
going
podcast.
down. Yeah, right.
If we can't go to the gym, let's start a podcast.
Exactly.
So all these conspiracy theories surrounding it. The number one was the lab leak theory.
Yes.
Because I mean, there was a lot surrounding the origins of it because there was the military event right in that region.
Yeah.
Then there happens to be the Wuhan lab that happens to be doing gain of function research that obviously we weren't funding, but we were funding.
Right.
But just coincidentally in that region is where this non-related COVID virus.
But you could not even associate it with China to begin with.
Well,
Right?
because you're racist.
Yeah, you're racist. You couldn't say Kung Flu or
because Nancy Pelosi would go to Chinatown and dance in the streets.
in her Komodo.
Yes, and dance in the streets of freaking Chinatown to say, hey, we're not racist.
Yeah.
And almost immediately it was like social media accounts suspended.
Yeah.
If you suggest that this was a lab leak, suspended. Accounts kicked off Facebook, kicked off Twitter. Not even just like individuals, like Zero Hedge was kicked off Twitter.
Yes.
Like one of our main sources for
Yeah.
just daring to suggest that this possibly wasn't natural origins, but it came from a lab in that same area that happens to be researching on this same viruses that leaked out of there. So, like I said, this theory, this lab leak theory that we've talked quite a bit about, the possibilities, through like the gain of function cover-ups and like the Dr. Fauci funneling money towards it without or like paying the one guy who was paying, what was it, the NIH who was paying, his NIH was paying this other corporation.
Peter Drazak?
Yeah, whatever his name was, Peter something. It's been a while.
Yeah.
And then somehow that money just happens to funnel back to Wuhan. But there's no cover up here. There's no lab leak theory. Debunked. How many times did you see that this was a debunked theory? That's
absolutely.
Based on no scientific evidence because all this shit. Like the mask was based on scientific evidence, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Like the social distancing, that was based on scientific evidence.
Like the not being able to use ivermectin.
Yeah, scientific evidence.
Absolutely.
No political things here.
Not
It was
at all.
all based, except for this lab leak theory. There's no scientific evidence of this. Derek Ambrose is here, said he installed the interwebs in people's houses through the entire pandemic. Some people were beyond crazy. Thankfully, I live in rural areas, and the craziness was limited because the population is tiny. Hey, we go into homes and install stuff too. So yeah, we saw it firsthand.
Yeah.
We saw like people just letting their systems go to shit because they're like, well, we don't want you to come look at it now. Is there anything?
I'll just unplug it for now.
Yeah. Is there anything you can do without coming here? It's like, no, we can't. Anyway, back to the debunked theory. I mean, as recent, even like into 2021, it was starting to come out a little bit. It almost came out. I remember there was a point where we were like, oh, guys, this is it. It's going to come out. They're going to talk about a lab leak theory. But then it almost got like shut. Like,
wasn't it there was some newspaper where they were like, there may be evidence contrary to what we thought, and that was about it.
Yeah, guys, as the science evolves, or as the investigation
I love
evolves,
that. The science evolves.
or as the investigation progresses, we have to change. It's just like, but it wasn't like, well, let's see, let's just see. Let's not jump to any conclusions. It was, no, absolutely fucking not. It wasn't lab leak. And then all of a sudden it's like, guys, we shouldn't jump to conclusions after evidence is pointing more in that direction. And then it still comes out. It's like, but it's not scientifically proven. Because this article was back in Forbes. So we're going to do a brief flashback.
Okay.
Back in 2021, It was June. So right about the time that people were starting to talk about this again. And people were like, well, maybe it was a lab leak. Forbes comes out and says the Wuhan lab leak hypothesis is a conspiracy theory, not science.
Wow.
Very direct.
Yes.
Very bold statement there.
Yes.
I feel like at some point these news agencies would realize, let's not speak in such directives.
Right.
Let's not speak in absolutes, because 9 times out of 10, we got to come back and things reverse. But it's not like they eat crow on it, or they just slip in something like quietly, like some retraction quietly down. It's like, well, we retracted that statement. It's just like, when the fuck did you do that? Because you very publicly said it is a conspiracy theory, and you very quietly say, maybe we were wrong.
Even before I got here, I was watching a clip of Fauci denying it, with Rand Paul kind of ramming down his throat. You know?
Yeah, Fauci's going to deny it to his death, because if it comes out that it was an intentional lab leak, it's going to trace back to him. So he has probably the most, in this country at least, one of the most to lose if the conspiracy theories, all the bizarre ones are true.
To China.
Yeah, he may have to. Because this said, at the very end of 2019, a new disease began to emerge in humans, COVID-19. Originally described as a set of pneumonia-like symptoms with hitherto unseen cause, a set of alarming facts soon came to light. A novel virus known as SARS-CoV-2 had begun infecting humans, with the first major outbreak stemming from a wet market in Wuhan. Again, there is no scientific evidence that this came from a wet market in Wuhan. This is speculative. Did they go there and start cutting the heads off bats and start investigating them? No, that was the very first thing they said with zero evidence. It's like, well, most likely, I mean, they just eat raw bats from wet markets. They say, why wouldn't it come from that? That was with zero scientific evidence. That was the first thing they said.
Yeah, and part of that is with the WHO being in China's pocket. You know, that's kind of what they were going with. It's like, well, that's what they told us.
So, I mean, just instantly on that train. And when you come to a conclusion, like say there's a crime scene, or say, like specifically, let's go back to last week's episode. You weren't here, but let's go back to last week's episode. A guy supposedly committed suicide in a park, and the first person on site had never seen a suicide. He was a park officer, park police. Never seen a suicide. His first conclusion was, obviously suicide. There's a guy with a gunshot wound to his head. Obviously a suicide. Immediately when you come to those conclusions, the entire investigation is pointing out that like, kind of supporting your conclusion. Instead of coming in, it's like, there's a dead guy.
Yeah.
What killed this dead guy? If you come in and you're like, there's a suicide. Let's figure this out. How did he commit suicide? When you immediately come out and say, this came from the wet markets. Everything and all their resources are like, how do we prove that this came from the wet markets?
Yeah.
And I'm sure millions of dollars went into, in the very least, steering it that direction, if not blatantly covering it up.
Absolutely.
It says, the explanation for SARS-CoV-2, claiming that it had a zoonotic origin, or natural animal origins, has been disputed by some, despite the lack of any publicly available scientific evidence to the contrary. Instead, according to recent claims, the virus may not have originated and spread from the wild, but could have escaped in a lab leak from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Remember we did an episode and found where all the different labs that could possibly
all over the world
have these kinds of labs, and there was only a few of them, and they happened to be where some of these outbreaks were popping up.
We thought that was a little odd.
It was a little fishy. From the point of view of the virus's genome, there's no way to rule such a possibility out so long as the virus was never characterized or reported in the lab before its escape. But is this lab leak hypothesis legitimate scientific theory on equal or even superior footing with the zoonotic origin theory? Or is it a conspiracy theory without scientific evidence to back up these wild assertions? Let's take a comprehensive look to try and unpack everything that's been going on. All right, first of all, can you take a comprehensive look by starting out saying conspiracy theory with wild assertions? backing up wild assert.
No, I think
Is
you
it a
pretty much
non-
made up your mind.
Yeah, I don't think it's a comprehensive, non-biased like approach. It's not
Right.
like let's break down the details here.
Is
Let's
it
break down
possible?
the facts.
I don't know. Let's see, and we'll figure it out.
No, it's more like look at these dumbasses.
Yeah,
Let's
right.
prove them wrong. That's what this whole thing was. And
Mm.
again, this was back in June of
Yeah.
2021. So again, within a year past, like over a year past, they're still saying, you guys are dumbasses. This
Mm-hmm.
is wrong. There's no science to prove this. This obviously, clearly came
Yeah.
from natural origins because the WHO said so, because the NIH said so, or whatever, name the organization,
Mm-hmm. Right.
they said
Yeah.
so. The CDC said so. They
Right.
all because they have nothing to gain from this or nothing to lose.
Right,
They're
absolutely.
not biased
No,
here.
not at all.
So, let me find where I'm at here. It talks about, there was a part in here. It talks about, and this pisses me off the most, because it compares it to other conspiracy theories. It says, when you mix conspiracies with science, certain people are inevitably drawn to those ideas, which include the notion that the Apollo moon landing was faked. The idea 9/11 was an inside job, masterminded by the government, and buildings were brought down by planted explosives rather than plane crashes, jet fuel, and fires. Or that climate scientists all know global warming is a hoax, but they're all lying to the world to promote funding for their own fields, as alleged in the Climate Gate conspiracy. The funny thing is, I believe all of those things to be true. Oh, you're just making a point. If you're trying to say, if you believe these things, and obviously you're going to believe that, that
Yes,
the lab
yes, you're
leak.
correct, we
Well, It's
do.
just like, okay, that's more reason for me to believe that it leaked from a
Right,
lab
yeah,
based on
exactly.
what you just said. Says there are certain identifiable hallmarks to the theories. They always include large numbers of lines of circumstantial evidence suggesting the full truth isn't being told. It goes on down to say, right here, it says many demonstrably false claims are always included as well, and as those are debunked one by one, supporters of the conspiracy will move the goalposts once again.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, is that like the pot calling the kettle black?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, how many times have we released another episode
Yeah.
talking about how they moved the goalposts
Yes.
once again?
Yeah.
Like the efficacy of masks. Like,
Yeah.
well, one mask is fine, and it can be a cloth mask,
Yeah.
then two masks, well,
Right.
possibly three masks.
Yeah.
Then it comes out, it's like, you should be masked indoors and outdoors. And then
Right.
they come out a week later and they're like, you don't have to mask outdoors at all, but
Yeah.
indoors.
Right.
And then like 2 weeks later, they're like, we don't even know if masks work at all.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But we're moving the goalpost because
Yeah.
we're like, well, look, this is fishy, and this is fishy. And then they're like, well, that's not fishy because of this. It's like, all right, so not that, but these
that's,
here.
That's what you do, though.
That's
you,
not
you,
moving the goalpost.
No, but I mean, that's what they do. Is they accuse you of doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
You're like,
Well,
well,
yeah.
obviously you're insane because you keep moving the goalposts. It's like, well,
As they're moving the goalpost.
yeah, exactly. They're like kind of kicking it back.
They're like, because we didn't even say that as
Yeah.
they shift the goal. We actually said this. They're like,
Yeah.
you're just moving the goalpost. It's freaking ridiculous.
yeah.
So they go on. I mean, we don't have to dig into this. We all remember. We all remember
Yeah.
the claims. Eventually, I feel like it's going to come out that the media giants or the social media giants had been saying this all along. It's going
Right.
to come out
Oh yeah,
and be
absolutely.
like,
Yes. Yeah.
you know, this is what we've been saying. Like, talk about moving goalposts. They do it so, like, slimily
Oh yeah. Yeah.
that they'll just come out and be like, because we'll get
Yeah.
into what they're saying now
Yeah.
of how they're already twisting the fault for this.
Yeah.
But they're going to come out and eventually Forbes is going to be like, guys, we've been talking
Yeah,
all
right.
along
Oh, yeah.
that this was a
Well,
lab
they'll be
leak.
like, well, obviously it was a lab leak, and you'll be like, wait, what? You're like, yes, yeah.
And they're going to come out. It's going to shift, and they'll be like, somehow work around, be like, so no, social media did not. There'll be a fact check. It'll be like, social media did not censor the lab leak
Yeah, right.
theory.
Yeah.
Social media was pressured by so and so, but they did not censor.
Yeah.
So before all this gets memory hold, that's why I want to bring
Yeah.
up some of the past to be like, look, it is there.
Yeah.
It was there. They were censoring it because, like this article says, this was the same month or this was like July, so this was right. No, I think this was still in 2020. When did this come out?
How Facebook censored the lab leak theory?
Yeah,
that
no,
was
May
in
of 2021.
Yeah,
So yeah,
a
right
year
when
later.
it was starting to come out
Yeah.
that this may or may not. Facebook decided to quietly like shift their policy on censoring the
Right.
lab leak. They're like, well, maybe we're not going to censor this anymore.
Right.
And it's like, well, in order to admit that you're not going to censor this, you're admitting that you were censoring
Right,
it at
yeah,
one point.
yeah.
Because it says, so again, May of 2021, Facebook issued 2 statements in the past week relating to the treatment of misinformation, and they couldn't have been more different. The first was a single paragraph updating their policy on stories speculating that COVID-19 is a man-made virus. After almost every major media outlet, and yesterday even the British and American security services finally confirmed that it's a feasible possibility. In light of ongoing investigations into the origin of COVID-19 and consultation with public health experts, a Facebook spokesman said, "We will no longer remove the claim that COVID-19 is man-made or manufactured from our apps." In other words, Facebook now believes that its censorship of millions of posts in the preceding months had been in error. There was, of course, no hint of apology in its most recent statement, though its tone proved quite contrast to Facebook's boast last year in April. Along it displayed warnings on 50 million pieces of content related to COVID-19. That was just the start. In February this year, Facebook even placed a warning on a piece for Unheard by Ian Burrell, an award-winning investigative reporter who has been writing about the origins of COVID since the start of the pandemic. When people saw the warning label, 95% of the time they did not go on to view the original content, the company said. Moreover, if an article is rated false by their fact checkers, the network will reduce its distribution. This means that while an author or poster is not aware the censorship is taking place, the network could be hiding their content so it is not widely disseminated. Shadow banning. We talked about that. They came out and kind of negated that, or Twitter did. Twitter was like, no, we don't shadow ban. It's just all organic, and we all know that's not true.
Right.
So Facebook about-faced back then. So we know at some point, for at least a year, people were getting kicked off.
Yes.
Accounts were getting suspended, shadow banned.
Yeah.
Posts were getting flagged because of this lab leak theory.
How many doctors did they discredit and eliminate their Google pages because they were spreading false information?
Even Twitter. Twitter's not, I mean, this was pre-Elon Musk Twitter, but Twitter's definitely not absent of blame here, because Twitter, like I said, banned Zero Hedge for posting just for posting the lab leak theory. They completely banned them. And then remember, I think we talked about this, a couple days later they reinstated them and they were like, oh, it's just an error in our system.
Yeah.
It's like, that's
whatever.
a very specific error.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And they banned them because Zero Hedge posted the name in their article of the guy that they felt was responsible. Could have been responsible for the lab leak. And they're like, well, this is, I don't know.
Slander.
Not even slander, like harassment.
Oh.
And so that's what they banned him on, was for harassment of this guy. And so we saw that this was all going on.
Yeah.
So all this to point out that in like 6 months from now, when social media has come out and they're like, we never did that.
Right, yeah.
Or the like CNNs or Fox News's or MSNBC's come out and like, guys, we were right all along.
Yeah.
We can see before this disappears from the internet that it was there at one point.
Yeah.
It's hard to find it.
Yeah. Or they'll
but
be
it
like,
is there.
Well, as responsible journalists, we can't jump on every story that pops up. We have to research it.
Yeah, obviously it took 3 years to research it,
right.
but the whole natural origins thing, we came to that conclusion in one day.
Yeah.
But it took us 3 years to possibly even have the notion that this could possibly come from a lab leak. So, suddenly, about a week ago, I think 6-7 days ago, the narrative starts to do an about face. So the narrative was, up till recently, the mainstream narrative was still natural origins. Even though, like I said, in 2021, people were like, well, there's the possibility.
Right. We won't stop you from saying it, but we don't know for sure.
But most likely it was natural origins. Suddenly, there's an about face. And the first one to come out was this from the FBI, this FBI chief. His name is Christopher Wray. came out and said that the most likely scenario is a lab leak. Not hey, this is possible.
Right.
It's like, no, it's most
is.
likely a lab leak.
Yeah.
And for the FBI to come out and say this means they've probably been sitting on this intel for how
Yeah.
long?
Right. Yeah.
How long do you think they sat on it before he's like, we can't do any more damage than we already have, so we can let this slip a little bit.
Probably a couple years.
Yeah, probably since day one. Probably since 2018, actually.
Yeah, right.
Before we even knew about the virus. So this is from BBC. It says FBI Director Christopher Wray has said that the Bureau believes COVID-19 most likely originated in a Chinese government-controlled lab. The FBI has for quite some time now assessed that the origins from the pandemic are most likely a potential lab leak incident. Isn't it funny how they come out and like, oh yeah, for a while now we've thought this.
Yeah.
It's just like, but you're
Where
just
were
now
you?
saying something?
Yeah, exactly.
You're just now saying something about this. It's kind of like when we talked about the Chinese balloons, and they're like, yeah, obviously, there's been Chinese balloons flying over us for years now.
Yeah.
You didn't know that?
Yeah.
Oh, we thought we told you.
Everybody knew that.
Oh, we must have must have slipped our mind. Says it's the first public confirmation of the FBI's classified judgment of how the pandemic virus emerged. Many scientists point out there is no evidence that it leaked from a lab. I like how they have to throw that in there. And other U.S. government agencies have drawn differing conclusions to the FBI. Some of them have said, but with a low level of certainty, that the virus did not start in a lab, but instead jumped from animals to humans. The White House has said there is no consensus across the U.S. government on the origin. So right now, as we're sitting, the government has no fucking clue.
Right. Yeah. But does that surprise you, though?
No.
I mean, isn't that where we were at with the balloons, too?
Yeah, it's just like,
I don't know.
I don't know what to do. Is it? Isn't it? I don't know. What do you think? I think it is. What do you think? I think it isn't. What do you think? I don't fucking know.
Sorry, guys. No consensus.
Nope. No consensus. I mean, that's the easiest way.
Yeah.
That's government in a nutshell. It's just like, plead no consensus.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know.
What are you going to do about that?
Yeah. A joint China World Health Organization investigation back in 2021
Yeah, that has credibility.
called the lab leak theory extremely unlikely. So again, remember that.
Yeah.
WHO back in 2021
Joint with China.
joined with China.
Yeah,
Well,
so-
back then, like early in the pandemic, I don't know if you remember this, but the WHO was like praising China for the transparency
fuck
at the
yes.
start of it.
Yes.
And then they start looking into it about 2021. And then recently, I guess, I didn't know this, but recently the WHO kind of quietly was like, yeah, we're not going to keep investigating this whole
doesn't surprise
origins
me.
thing because China's not playing ball.
Yeah.
She's like, so what happened from, they're super transparent
Right.
to, guys, we got nothing here because they're not giving us
That means they
anything.
got a little stingy with the donations.
Yeah, that's probably it. It says, however, the WHO investigation was deeply criticized, and its director general has since called for a new inquiry, saying all hypotheses remain open and require further study.
Yep, they stopped paying.
Yeah. Mr. Ray's comments come a day after the U.S. ambassador to China called the country to be more honest about COVID's origins. In his interview Tuesday, Mr. Ray said China has been doing its best to try to thwart and obfuscate efforts to identify the source of the global pandemic. He said details of the agency's investigation were classified, but the FBI had a team of experts focusing on the dangers of biological threats. In response, Beijing accused Washington of political motivation or manipulation. No way. The conclusion they have reached have no credibility to speak of, said Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning. So China says no. The FBI says yes. The rest of the government says we don't know.
We don't know.
So that's where we're sitting. But we do have at least one agency coming out and saying,
Yes.
guys, this looks like a lab leak.
Yes.
Shortly after, maybe, I don't know, a day later, not long after, the Department of Energy came out and like, no, they're right. We think that too.
And what were they exactly looking at?
What?
Department of Energy.
Yeah, what does the
How do
Department...
they- And also, the Department of Agriculture came out and said maybe.
I thought that too. I was like, what the hell does the Department of
Yeah.
Energy have? Apparently, the Department of Energy has something to do with some sort of regulation of labs and stuff. And so I think they're just trying to connect the dots here.
Okay. It seems thin.
It does.
Yeah.
It definitely seems
It's
thin.
like, we need another agency to step up. Who's going to be?
It's like DOD. What about you?
Yeah.
It's like, well, fuck that.
No,
We ain't
no.
touching that.
Yeah, right.
We already had the guy that said we're going to war with China in 3 years. We ain't touching that yet. You got to give us some time.
Yeah,
we got to
give us 3
space
years.
this out. They're like, what about Homeland Security? Like, nope, not touching it because no. They're like, energy, and they're like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah, we haven't done anything in a couple years.
We haven't had a headline in a while.
The climate change thing's not working for us, so okay.
We'd like to have a news article about us, so that's fine. So this one says, lab leak. Department of Energy updates its conclusion on COVID's origin. As the drip of revelations about COVID-19 pandemic continues, some 3 years after its appearance in the U.S., saw the first lockdowns and restrictions instituted, a federal agency has changed its conclusion about the virus origins. According to an exclusive report in the Wall Street Journal published Sunday, the U.S. Department of Energy has concluded that COVID most likely arose from a lab leak. An updated position from the Energy Department that was reportedly revealed in a classified intelligence report recently provided to the White House and key members of Congress. If all these are classified reports, how are we hearing about these? Who is leaking? Who's leaking that lab? It says previously, so yeah, they didn't quite reverse course because previously the Department of Energy was officially undecided.
No. Wow.
So they
Wow.
just didn't. They went from I don't know to possibly lab leak, and
That's a bold move for them.
yeah, and they're like, well, really, our opinion doesn't really carry anything in this, so we'll change our status from
Undecided.
undecided to
yes.
possibly. Overall, the U.S. federal government remains at odds over the pandemic's origins, with the Energy Department and FBI both now concluding a lab leak was most likely to blame, while 4 other federal entities believe it was the result of natural transmission, and 2 remain undecided, according to the Wall Street Journal.
I feel like they're scoring a boxing match.
Yes. Officials who spoke to the Wall Street Journal declined to give details on fresh intelligence and analysis that led to the Energy Department's change of position, but said the Department of Energy and FBI made their decision for different reasons. An official did confirm that the intelligence community had conducted the update in light of new intelligence, further study of academic literature, and consultation with experts outside the government. So they're like, well, we have our reasons. They're different reasons. They're not the same reasons,
Right.
but they are reasons. And it was intelligent reasons, but we can't tell you what they were.
Exactly. But there was a lot of time and effort that went into figuring out those reasons.
And there was really good reasons for
Yes,
us to
they're
change.
the best reasons ever.
Yes. The type of research and intelligence gathering has become the United States' only hope of learning more about COVID-19, how COVID-19 became a global pandemic, after the Chinese Communist Party closed ranks, restricted, and in some cases apparently disappeared its scientists from speaking to the outside world, and banned international and United Nations scientists from investigating the virus origins at the apparent source. Now look, again, I mean, you're guilty, or not guilty. You're innocent until proven guilty. Typically, supposedly.
Yes.
But when you're sitting here saying, oh, all these claims are baseless, this is the baseless U.S. claims trying to spark something, and then the supposed, like, non-biased agencies are like, well, can we come just take a look? They're like, no.
Yeah, right.
Fuck you. Where's your search warrant?
Yeah.
Yes, the libertarian in me is like, well, I would do the same thing if somebody, but in this scenario, it's like,
you can't say that you're completely blameless and then be like, no, you can't see in there.
But you can't. We're not gonna let you look. Well, I mean, there could be a world of other shit that they could get in trouble for that they don't want them to
that's
see.
true. Yes.
That doesn't mean they're to blame.
Is
And
that
this
a human bat hybrid?
Yes. Well, they might find our human or organ donating lab.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. The Uyghurs.
Yes, they might. We don't know what else they'll find.
Yeah.
If you could just isolate.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I mean, there could be so many other things.
Yeah.
that
You would think at that point they'd come out and be like, yes, we have bats that we did that with.
just you don't have to come look.
Yeah.
We're just gonna
Yes.
tell you, yes, we
Yes.
fucked up. Just don't come look. We'll throw ourselves under the bus. It says Republicans in the House are planning an investigation of their own into the origins of COVID-19 with their majority power in committee chairmanships, specifically Republican James Comer and the House Oversight Committee. Discovering the origin is vital to providing accountability and protecting Americans in the future. The Oversight Committee's COVID Origins landing page said, mounting evidence points to the virus originating from a leak at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. It adds, reflecting what the Department of Energy has concluded. But Oversight Republicans also plan to probe how EcoHealth Alliance, a U.S. national, so the NIH grantee, so that's who it was, EcoHealth. Remember the NIH
yes,
gave the grant to
yep.
EcoHealth, who
Yeah.
gave the grant to
and that's
Wuhan.
the Peter Dziak.
Daszak, yeah.
Yeah, that's the connection. He's
Yeah.
the EcoHealth guy.
Yeah, so they're going to look into EcoHealth Alliance too.
Yeah.
Do you think the Republicans just want to get to the bottom of this?
I think that they know the Democrats dropped the ball, and they're trying to show everybody that.
So basically a political move.
Absolutely.
Do you think they would even care if it was like not on the?
No, if it was,
And is it even on the Democrats? Because Trump was in office at the beginning of this shit.
but Trump had a Democrat Senate and House at the time, right?
Sure.
So I mean, they could go and be like, well, we didn't know anything about it, and so now the Republicans are in the House, and they're like, well, then we're gonna look, and then the Democrats are like, but wait, the Energy Department saw something. Let's ask them.
What intel does the Energy Department have? Again, I keep coming
they-
back to why.
They're probably stacked.
Why the Energy Department? Why are they the
They
ones
probably
coming
have
out?
their own like SEAL Team 6.
Well, we know the IRS does, so why
Yeah.
not the Energy? They're
Right.
like, we want commandos too. If
Yeah,
the IRS
right.
can have commandos,
Yeah, we want
the
commandos.
Energy Department should have commandos
Fine,
as well.
we'll give you a
Fine,
couple
we'll
of the
give you
IRS's
commandos,
extras.
but you got to go
Yeah.
investigate China.
You need to find some good stuff.
So, is it, just a side question, is it out of the question to say that both happen? Like, yes, it leaked from a lab, but yes, it also was transmitted from animals to humans, like natural origin. Is that because couldn't they have experimented on animals, released them into the Wuhan area and infected the people?
Yeah.
Like, they keep saying, well, all the evidence points that this jumped off animals to humans. But did it naturally, or did we create?
Right.
Not we.
Yeah.
Us. Maybe us.
Probably us.
Some conglomerate of evil scientists create this
Oh, yes.
virus because that's what they were. That's what gain of function research
absolutely.
is. It's hey, let's see if we can manipulate these viruses. Let's see what it would take for these viruses to jump off animals into humans.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
then you can say, well, this jumped off an animal into a human. Well, yeah, but you did that.
Right.
You made that happen.
Yes. And my understanding is that, Obama and DARPA was like, look, it's too dangerous to do this here in the United States.
Yeah.
Wink, wink, if you catch our meaning.
Yeah. And so Fauci outsourced that to China
Yeah.
before that went down, had it all set up over there.
Yeah.
And then Obama shut it down here in the United States. It's like, well, we already got this thing going on over there, but
Yes.
we can't fund it. But there is this. We had
Yes.
no idea that EcoHealth Alliance was going to
Yeah.
take our money and send it straight to
China.
China.
And
but-
it was my understanding that Echo Center Health, they humanized mice to test,
How do you humanize a mouse?
like inject genomes and shit like that. I don't know. I saw it on Deep Blue
They're
Sea
making
once.
like Splinter, like
I
Master
think,
Splinter.
well,
now?
that would be way too cool.
That would, but God, there's enough sci-fi movies. We say this all the time. Enough
Yes.
sci-fi movies out there.
I know. It's
Not
like,
even good sci-fi movies
no,
out
they
there.
all end in shit. There's
Yes.
not one where it turned out good.
Stop screwing with nature.
Exactly.
Like I feel like they've even reworded it from natural origins to what was that, like zoological
Yes.
something. Like none of these articles even say natural origin anymore because
Yeah.
if you say whatever it was, zoological
Yeah.
transmission or something, I don't remember. But then you can say it jumped off animals to humans.
Yeah.
But you're not saying that it wasn't created by humans to jump off animals into humans. You're just saying that it's a virus that jumps off animals to humans.
Yes.
Because to say natural origins would say that it naturally, without any human manipulation, any outside manipulation, it naturally just
it
did
evolved.
That. It evolved
right?
and did that itself. But to say like, oh, this fancy term that says it jumped off animals to humans, well, we can say that and then go down the road be like, well, we didn't say it didn't come. We didn't say we didn't make them. We just said it jumped off animals. So technically,
we just said it was zoological.
It's also a game of semantics.
It is.
You know they play
That's
semantics.
all politics.
Yeah. So it didn't.
I took zoology in school, and we never got close to this interesting stuff.
It's going to
Wait,
get
we
to the
can create
point where they're like,
viruses?
well, it didn't. Well, we thought you meant by lab leak. We thought you meant it literally like leaked out the seams of the lab and got it to humans. No, it
happen.
What we said was it jumped off animals. And yeah, we did release some animals into the wild. That's what we meant by not a lab leak. It didn't just leak out because we have these kick-ass HEPA filters. It's not going to leak out our lab. So when we said it didn't leak out the lab, we meant it literally. Yeah. So they just talk about shifting goalposts. They reword the semantics of it.
Yeah.
To fit their story.
Yeah. So and my understanding of it is that basically the lab didn't. First of all, it was understaffed because nobody wanted to work at this place, and second of all, they didn't fulfill the requirement for this level of virus to keep it safe.
Yeah, I think we covered that.
Yeah, it was supposed to be like a BSL-4, and they were treating it as a BSL-2.
Well, remember there was like plans in the works to boost this to a BSL-5 or something.
Yes,
and
it just never got there.
I don't think it ever got to that. Derek says, they could just stop spending my tax dollars on this whole thing and I'd be good. More money for the DOD to use bombing birthday parties in the third world countries.
Yes.
I mean, it's probably, a lot of this is probably money laundering, just like everything else.
Oh, I'm sure. Yes.
Like funding of the research, quote unquote, research of this, and then they can just change the story.
Yeah.
They knew from day one, they knew the cause of this. They knew
Absolutely.
it before it even became public knowledge. They knew. Some Chinese guy was like, oh, just so you know, this might be a thing. And so now they can be like, well, let's spend all these billions of dollars researching on how this happened. None of it probably went to researching it.
Fuck no.
It all got laundered away. So then 3 years down the road, they can be like, after spending billions of dollars on this research, we've come to the conclusion that we don't know. And we might not ever know. But there's a chance it was lab leak, but there's also a chance it was natural origins.
But in the future, we'll make sure any further investigation is fully endorsed.
Obviously.
Obviously.
We need to ramp up spending on research and on investigation of research. We just need to spend more money. That's how you prevent the next virus, the next pandemic, is spend more, throw more money on it. Look at AIDS. Look how well that worked out.
So we need to raise taxes.
Yes. So some other things that the GOP has released in their findings, because they're on it. They just want transparency, kind of like the FBI.
Sure. That's
is
good.
This new case against Fauci. Like Fauci, I think if anybody is on the chopping block for this, I think it will be Fauci.
Yeah.
He saw the writing on the walls. That's why he retired. He's like, I'm getting the fuck out because this is going to come down.
He's
I will be the scapegoat.
Living it up in a non-extradition country.
Yes. Apparently, Fauci back in the day prompted scientists to fabricate the original origins papers.
I believe that.
Like, down to, like, possibly paying millions of dollars for these scientists to be like, no, it wasn't a lab leak. It was natural origins. This from Zero Hedge says, Dr. Anthony Fauci, who offshored banned gain-of-function research to make a bat coronavirus more transmissible to humans, has been accused by congressional investigators of having prompted the fabrication of a paper by a cadre? I don't know how to pronounce that.
A cadre
Of scientists, a bunch of scientists, aimed at disproving the lab leak theory. Says on February 1st, Fauci and his boss, NIH director Dr. Francis Collins. I didn't know he had a boss.
I didn't either. I thought he was it.
And at least 11 other scientists participated in a conference call during which several of them warned that COVID-19 may have leaked from a lab in Wuhan. So this is early 2020.
Okay.
So this is February. So before it even
Before the lockdowns.
Before the lockdowns even happened, he participated in a conference call where several scientists were like, this possibly leaked from a lab, and may have intentionally been genetically manipulated. 3 days after the call, 4 of the participants from the call seemingly discarded their concerns over a lab leak and drafted the proximal origin of SARS-CoV-2, which they sent to Fauci and Collins. So they had this call. They're like, guys, this kind of looks like a lab leak. Conference call goes on. 3 days later, they're like, never mind. And they draft this paper that was like, no, this is most likely natural origins.
Yeah.
And that's where this whole natural origins, quote unquote, theory came from, was this paper. Sounds kind of like Fauci and his work with AIDS.
Yes.
Where he's just like, no, you can get this off of like toilet seats. And people are like, oh my God, you can get this off like AIDS off toilet seats. And like, people didn't want to touch gay people. They didn't want anything to do with people with AIDS. And then all of a sudden he comes out. He's like, I don't know where that theory came from. Remember we had that whole conversation?
That's his whole life. I mean, everything he's done his whole life.
Yes.
Right?
I'm waiting for him to come out and be like, I don't know where this whole natural origin shit came from. I've been saying the whole time that it was a lab leak because that's exactly what he did with AIDS.
Yes.
Says also heavily involved was Dr. Jeremy Farrar, the current chief scientist at the WHO. It says, as a related aside, the Washington Examiner revealed last week that 2 authors of the proximal origin, or the natural origin paper I was talking about, who initially expressed concerns over the lab leak, then changed their minds, received millions of dollars in NIH grants. Who's in charge of the NIH? Fauci. So these people are like, no, it's a lab leak. Then they're like, never mind, let's write this paper saying it was natural origins. Then all of a sudden they get millions of dollars in NIH grants.
So if the FBI and the very ominous energy department decide to push this, right? Mm-hmm. And eventually the NIH is going to pop up, right? Unless they're trying to get ahead of it. How do you paint China as the bad guy when America is clearly involved?
Well, you got to put a scapegoat in there, which I think would be Dr. Fauci.
Yeah.
You put Fauci on a chopping block.
Yeah.
And then Fauci is even though everybody else was complicit too.
Right.
But Fauci will be the guy, and he'll be so old it won't even fucking matter.
Yeah.
He'll probably be dead by then.
That's probably true.
And so they put
suicide by shotgun to the back of the head.
One person on the chopping block and say this was all China and Fauci or whoever. Maybe they'll throw the Echo Health Alliance guy under the bus.
Yeah, he probably will as well.
And then it ends there. It's kind of like Jeffrey Epstein. It's like, well, Jeffrey Epstein's dead, so this whole ring is dead with him. It's just like, but what about the ring? It's like, well, there is no ring because Jeffrey Epstein's dead.
Then they can paint the story any way they want to, right? Obama could be like, well, I told them not to continue this, and they did anyways.
Derek says Fauci's boss is, because we asked Fauci's boss. Fauci's boss's name is the science, and you can't question the science.
That's true.
Yes. No, Fauci is the science, remember?
Yes, that's right. He is the science.
Fauci is the science, and you can't question the science. And Fauci is Fauci's boss. So what do you think of this, him possibly paying off these scientists?
Oh, I can absolutely see that. Like you said, this isn't the first time he would have done it either. So, I mean, this is his MO.
It says, new evidence released by the Select Subcommittee today suggests that Dr. Fauci prompted the drafting of the publication that would disprove the lab leak theory. The authors of this page skewed available evidence to achieve the goal, and Dr. Jeremy Farrar went uncredited despite significant involvement. It goes on to say, for those following the bouncing ball, the U.S. was doing risky gain-of-function research on U.S. soil until 2014 when the Obama administration banned it. 4 months before the ban, Fauci offshored to Wuhan through a New York nonprofit, Echo Health Alliance. After SARS-CoV-2 broke out down the street from the Wuhan Institute, Fauci engaged in a massive campaign to deny the possibility of a lab leak. So I don't even necessarily have to – I don't think that he necessarily – had to believe that it was a lab leak. But if he was involved with, like, because remember we talked about Fauci and how he was like, the possibility of a pandemic outbreak is worth it
Yeah.
for all the incredible
Yes.
knowledge we will gain from gain of function research. It's with
Yes.
the minor chance that we'd have a lab leak in a global pandemic. That's worth it
Yeah.
to
yeah.
for
I
this gain
remember
of
that.
function
Yeah.
research. So
That would be the smoking gun.
he comes out and
Forbes.
says something like that, and then all of a sudden, this pandemic happens to break out down the street from where this gain of function research that he is secretly funneling money to, and he sees that he's like, shit. And they're like, he doesn't even have to be like, obviously it's lab leak. Just that question in your mind is like, did I do it?
Yeah.
Well, I got to cover my tracks immediately. Let's draft this paper. I'll give you $1 million to
Yeah.
whatever you want to research if you sign off on this paper. I mean, it's just like trying to distance himself from it and be like, look, I obviously had nothing to do with this. And how many times did Rand Paul come out
Yeah.
and he get in like a pissing match with Fauci
Yeah.
over it, and he's like basically calling Rand Paul a dumbass for
Yeah.
even suggesting this, and the whole time he's like,
Yeah. He knew.
well, according to this at least, he was paying off people
Yeah.
to say that this was a lab leak or it was a natural origins,
Yeah.
not a lab leak. So I don't know. If it comes out that he was somehow complicit, what do you think happens to good old Dr. Fauci?
You know, like you said, he's so old. I mean, what should happen to him, what does happen to him, like I said, he's going to just disappear. You know, he'll end up in a, house arrest or some cushy little country club jail.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it's nothing, it's not going to bite, not like it should, or he's going to end up putting it on somebody else who's already dead. Be like, well, actually, I took my cues from this guy. He told me what was happening, But,
Right. Now, do you think, like, if this was a lab leak due to gain of function research, what are the implications of that actually being true? Like, what research, like, are they still doing the gain of function research now?
Right.
Still possibly leaking more
Oh,
viruses
you
out
know
there?
they are. You called out what 5-6 different locations?
Right. I mean, let's say they're like, we've been looking at this all wrong. How much, like, funding, how much resources were spent on pushing this freaking narrative of
Yeah.
the natural origins? Like, how much money did Fauci have to spend to cover up his tracks? How much could we have been working to isolate the problem versus, this is natural. This could be, I mean, it's just this big bad boogeyman that's all over the world. There could be viruses everywhere. Instead of just like, let's look, I mean, there's only like 5 of those labs. Let's look at that one, that one, that one, that one. I mean, consolidate our resources. We could have been doing so much more to isolate the problem versus let's chase this boogeyman that's out in nature somewhere.
Well,
it's
but-
just natural.
But look at the implications of that. I mean, not only is it just Fauci and the NIH and the Wuhan lab. I mean, you got the WHO, you got the CCD, the UN. I mean, you got the American government, you got various I mean, the implications of the cover up of this is just
This goes so big.
yeah, it does. And that's the problem.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to happen.
Right. Now, I guess the biggest question is, if somebody would have just admitted, guys, we fucked up,
Yeah.
could lives have been saved?
Yes, absolutely.
If we weren't chasing down boogeymen,
Yes.
could lives have been saved? If we went directly to the
Yes.
source, probably, again, I feel like these people knew about this long before it became public. Probably
Yes.
back in early 2000 or like mid
Absolutely.
2019. We could have stopped this at the source,
Yeah.
isolated the problem at the source, and been like, "This came from there. Shut them down.
Yeah.
Let's quarantine this area here.
Yeah.
Kill off all the freaking bats in the wet markets, or
Right, yeah.
whatever." But
Yeah.
but instead, again, we're chasing this boogeyman of a virus
Yeah.
across the world. It's just like, well, it's just popping up in Brazil.
Right.
It's popping up in Germany. It's popping up here. There's this strain and that strain. It's just like, well,
You know
if this was a lab leak thing, it would have been. We could have saved lives just by isolating it.
I mean, not to give the guy credit, but if everybody listened to Trump as far as shutting down Asian travel rather than dancing in the streets wearing a kimono, I mean, would it have made a difference?
I mean, it could have. Could we, even if we knew, hey, this is all, and we did know it was coming from China.
Yeah. You just weren't allowed to say it.
Well, even with national origins theory, we still knew it was coming from China. Is it racist to shut down travel from a country that has
It shouldn't be.
pandemics? Or at least, you know what? You come here, we quarantine you for whatever. 14 days was the day. Then it was 7 days, and then it was 3 days. Whatever. You know, they moved the goalpost. Or, I don't know, shut down the traffic for a couple months, see what happens.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't feel like that's a racist thing.
If Biden was president and suggested the same thing, do you think it would have been done and nobody would have questioned it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, do you think maybe Donald Trump, because I'm not a big Trump guy.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Trump knew. Trump
Yeah.
was right all along. He fucking was. He's pro-vaccine. He's still pro-vaccine.
Right.
He was. I mean, he's the one that let Fauci have that
Right.
position to
Yeah.
begin with. Now, I feel like, if anything, Trump was there to make that look so crazy. And we'll get into this. Make that look so crazy that they're like, well, Donald Trump said it, so clearly it's not right.
I mean,
controlled opposition.
What was it he was calling the COVID? It was
the Wuhan flu or
Yeah.
the China flu?
yeah,
or,
yeah, the China flu, right?
Yeah.
And people got all bent out of shape about it. You're like, you can't say that.
we just said it here. Hopefully we don't get kicked off for...
I think it's a little late now.
Yeah. So we got to get into break. It's about that time. Do you feel, before... Because I'm going to switch courses a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you feel that the media, mainstream media that's been pushing against this all this time, do you think they eat crow after things like... even if it was to come out and be 100% proven that this was lab leak, do you think the media eats crow on this and they're like, we were wrong, guys. We fucked up. We were wrong.
Oh, fuck no.
No, they don't.
No, like you said, they'll come out and be like, well, that's what we thought, you know?
They already are.
Are they really?
They're twisting... They're twisting the narrative so hard.
Because they have to remain credible. You have to believe them, so they
Right.
have to twist it.
Oh yeah. Well, that's not what we said. That's
Yeah.
or we only said that because of this.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the route they're going right now.
Right.
We got to get into break though, and then we're gonna come back. I got some Whoopi Goldberg to play for
Oh, I
you
love
because
Whoopi.
we haven't heard from her in a while. So we're gonna go take a 2 or 3, 4 minute break, and then we're gonna come back. We're gonna take a look at the media response to this, and then I want to discuss what we think is actually going on here. And you brought it up in the beginning. Like, why would the FBI come out and say this now?
Yeah.
And it's not because of transparency. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert, the FBI isn't transparent.
It's never transparent.
No. So give us a couple minutes, and we'll be right back, and we will continue down this road of the China flu lab leak. We'll be right back.
Have you ever thought that maybe voting, maybe all this politics constantly surrounding you is not the way to achieve freedom in your life? Hi, I'm Remso W. Martinez, and I ask myself the same question. That's why I'm on a journey to find true freedom in my lifetime. From learning about financial independence, to new ways to develop rugged individualism, to amazing guests living strange, crazy, amazing lifestyles that you've only thought might be real, but actually are. Go ahead and check out my new show, On the Run with Remso W. Martinez at the We Are Libertarians Network. You can find On the Run with Remso W. Martinez on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play. You know how the internet works. Come on down and let's discover how to achieve real freedom in your life together.
Hey everybody, I just want to take this time to give a big shout out to the very first sponsor of the Break the Bell podcast. That is Goulash Media. They can be found at goulashmedia.net. Goulash Media specializes in graphic design, web design, audio recordings, video work, wedding videos, music videos, even political campaign videos. Goulash Media caters to the little guy with the big vision. You can check them out at goulashmedia.net. That's GOULASH media.net.
And we're back. And Bill's leaning the wrong way again.
It's because the microphone is over here.
The microwave? We're talking about the about face on the lab leak theory.
Yes.
So the more the government says that it was probably leaked out of a lab, do you think less that it was probably leaked out of a lab?
Well, it definitely makes you think that they're trying to lead you somewhere else, somewhere they don't want you to go.
We're trying to cover something else up.
Yeah,
or
right. Yeah.
saying, look over here, because it doesn't matter now anyway, so you might as well look over here.
It probably is going to come down to, remember when at the beginning of the whole thing, when China was like, actually, it was a biological weapon the U.S. kind of launched at us? Do you remember that?
For what? For what?
China had come out at the beginning of the whole thing, and they're like, actually...
Oh, yeah, because we had actually said that because of the whole war games over there, then all of a sudden, right after this thing, like a month later, there was COVID.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's probably what the truth is going to end up being.
or a combination of all of it.
Yeah.
Like, the military went over to war game to get the virus from the Wuhan lab, and somebody accidentally tripped and dropped it and infected a bat. So it's really all three scenarios in one.
That's probably closer to the truth.
They accidentally let the bat out of the cage.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
And then
They're
somebody
like,
ate
it.
it.
Look cute?
And somebody ate it in a wet market. Yeah. So, it's all three. All three. It was the U.S. military, it was the Wuhan lab, and it was the wet market.
Yes.
That's really, at the end of the day, the full story is all of the above. None of that. I mean, that's probably the most likely scenario.
Yeah, right. Nobody wants to look like the dumbass, so they're trying to, like, shuffle it around.
Yeah. And China's like, dumbass, it was your guy that tripped. It's like, but you gave him the bat.
Yeah, right.
You didn't secure the bat in the cage.
Yeah.
And all of this could have been avoided if it wasn't for Anthony Fauci.
Right.
I don't know. I don't think it's to the point where it matters. Like, they only release stuff after it matters.
Right.
Kind of like the JFK stuff. Like, it'll come out eventually, but everybody will be long dead and gone by the time it all comes out.
Yeah. And you and I pay attention to it, and we're like, oh, shit, see, I told you. But everybody else is like, oh, well, but, eggs.
Or, but Trump is a xenophobe or whatever.
Right, or Ukraine, right?
Yeah. So I promised you some Whoopi Goldberg.
Yes.
And I had asked, do you think the media eats crow on what all they said about this? And the answer is no, absolutely not.
No.
Here is Whoopi Goldberg's response to the news coming out that this possibly leaked from the lab.
Before Biden said anything about this, he made it about Asian people. And I'm sure Jon Stewart didn't realize that that's what was happening, because I'm sure he didn't know what was going on all over the country with Asian folks getting smacked and hit and people saying stuff to them about bringing the disease here. I mean, this was what was happening. And if you know who had not started it with that, had he not made it about that, had he said, listen, this might have come out of a lab, and not gone on and described in ways I'm not going to even reiterate for you, it probably would have been listened to a lot differently.
Well,
Fuck you.
Right.
If it wasn't for Trump's xenophobia, his blatant xenophobia, maybe more people, if Trump would have just come out and been like, we should look at this as a possibility, maybe more people would have thought about it. Right. How many of us, like, neither of us were like, well, obviously this is the fucking Asians.
Right.
No, we were like, maybe we should look at this. I mean, people like Zero Hedge, maybe we should look at this. And it's like, banned.
Well, but, I mean, what is... Whoopi is like, oh, well, if Donald said, well, it could be a lab leak, but no, he had to say maybe it was a Chinese lab leak. Yeah. I mean, holy cow, how can he cross that line?
She was hinting around that he called it like the China flu or the Wuhan flu or Kung Flu. That's the one we missed in the first half. Yeah. But it says, like this article says, The View blames Trump's xenophobia for discrediting the lab leak theory. Do you think that's why the lab leak theory didn't gain any
I'm
steam?
going to say that's probably the least likely reason.
Do you think they're just like, we got to isolate ourselves. Yeah. We got to distance ourselves from the lab leak theory because Trump is such a xenophobe that we don't want to be connected to that by even suggesting, can we look at this? Because that would tie us to Trump. I mean,
Right.
it is possible that they're like, Trump said it, we can't
Well,
say
and
this.
that's exactly that is true. That is true. I believe that they actually pulled a 180 on it because Trump said it. And it wouldn't have mattered how he would have said it. It's because he said it that they wouldn't have followed it. He could have said the nicest thing in the world about Chinese people, and they still would have been like, no, Trump said it, we're not touching it.
Says Goldberg told her co-host he made it about Asian people, referring to Trump's handling of the pandemic. She then referenced Asian folks getting smacked and hit and people saying stuff about them, about bringing the disease here. But it's just reiterating what she just said. It says, it was revealed Sunday that the Department of Energy concluded the virus most likely originated from a lab and was leaked. The department oversees, it's just repeating everything we said. But she comes out and basically says, you know, we would have maybe gave this some credit if it wasn't for the racist connotations that Trump attached to it.
Yeah.
Maybe. What about ivermectin? Was there any racist connotation about that? Because
Maybe against horses.
yeah, because at first they were like, no, dumbass, you can't take.
Yeah.
Then they're like, you know, this wasn't quite as bad as we had made it out to be.
Because remember the fucking article we read about the guy who didn't even have anything to do with the hospital, but he had written this whole article about how it was for horses and people were dying from it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it ended up he had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
And even when they did a retraction, it was in real small words
at the bottom
end.
of the screen. Says comedian Jon Stewart. So she's
And I remember when Jon Stewart said that, I was like, oh, wow, I'm surprised he said that.
Yeah, because she was like, well, if it wasn't for Donald Trump's xenophobia, maybe we would have taken Jon Stewart serious, because he apparently said the larger problem with all of this is the inability to discuss things that are within the realm of possibility without falling into absolute and litmus testing each other for our political agencies or allegiances as it arose from that. And so he's absolutely right.
Yeah.
And Whoopi goes on to say in this article where she's blaming Donald Trump for us not believing the lab leak theory, she also says, you know, what got in the way was politics got in the way. And I think she kind of was like, oh, people were like, Whoopi admits that politics got in the way. But no, she was just like basically saying Donald Trump's politics got in the way of all of this.
The truth of it is it was everybody else's politics.
And it's still her fucking politics now that are getting in the way. Because she's only saying this because it's going to come out more. Like, this little bit that's come out isn't the end of it. And so she's trying to get ahead of it and be like, guys, we said it like 3 weeks ago. It was like we were wrong. We admitted we were wrong without it, but they didn't. They just admitted that it was Donald Trump. It was obviously Donald Trump.
Right.
He's the reason why.
Of course. But the truth of the matter was, it was political expediency, right? They saw an opportunity to make Trump look bad, to slam the economy, and everything, and they used it, whatever form it came.
So that's Whoopi Goldberg. She blames, who did she blame for not believing the lab leak theory?
It was Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. Do you know this MSNBC host? His name is Mehdi Hassan. Do you know who he blames?
Donald Trump.
Conspiracy theorists.
Oh, okay.
Conspiracy theorists are the reason why the lab leak theory was suppressed, he said.
Interesting.
The people that were bitching that the lab leak was getting suppressed, they're the reason why the lab leak
got suppressed. Interesting.
This is from Fox News, so obviously it's biased.
Obviously.
Says MSNBC host goes on a Twitter rant over the lab leak theory being suppressed. Blamed the conspiracy theorists. Says the Energy Department said COVID-19 likely originated from an accidental, quote-unquote, accidental lab leak in China. MSNBC's Mehdi Hassan insisted that the right was to blame for efforts to squash discussion on the lab leak theory in a rant from his Twitter account on Sunday. The Mehdi Hassan show host originally retweeted a comment from the 538 founder Nate Silver, who blasted scientists and public officials who sought to suppress dissenting opinions on the origins of the coronavirus. Welp. Now, when you start a conversation with Welp,
yes, it's not going to go well.
No, your professionalism isn't shining at this point, especially as like a mega media guy.
Yeah.
The behavior of a certain cadre of scientists who used every trick in the book to suppress discussion of this issue is something I'll never forget. A huge disservice to the science and public health. They should be profoundly embarrassed. So no, I guess that was Silver, who's blasting the suppression.
Okay.
But he still said whelp. And so I immediately discredit him. Hassan responded, the simple reason why so many people weren't keen to discuss the lab leak theory is because it was, and he put in quotes theory on this one, is because it was originally conflated by the right with Chinese bioweapon conspiracies and continues to be conflated by the right with anti-Fauci conspiracies. Blame conspiracy theorists.
That doesn't even make sense.
No. They're like, well, they were just... we didn't want to talk about the lab leak because the right-wing conspiracy theorists were saying it was an intentional bioweapon, and they're just out to get Dr. Fauci. So that's why we suppressed that, not because of any. So blame them.
Yeah.
They're the reason. They took it too far, and we all know what happens when people ruin it for everyone. The U.S. Energy Department reportedly found COVID-19 pandemic likely originated from an accidental lab leak. In contrast to initial claims from scientists that it had developed naturally from a Wuhan wet market. Many in the media claimed early on that the lab leak theory had been debunked and was racist misinformation. According to Hassan, however, this was due to bad faith agitators. It's hard to have good faith disagreement about a major issue if the issue itself has been hijacked by bad faith folks, he tweeted. He added, incidentally, some of us did try and host good faith debates on the lab leak theory.
Bullshit.
Even back in 2021. Do you know when? This post that he refers to, it says, tonight, an important discussion on COVID's origin, the argument over the quote-unquote lab leak theories, and whether the media and scientists were too quick to shut down the debate. This was July of 2021 when people started talking about it again, saying, well, it might be possible. He wasn't saying that. He didn't try to have this discussion back in 2020 when people were getting banned for this shit.
Right.
No, it's like when Facebook was like, maybe we got to stop flagging people. Then his show was like, maybe we should talk about the quote-unquote lab leak theory.
Yeah.
So, too little too late, but still, he is blaming bad faith actors for hijacking the conversation, so we couldn't even have the conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, how much sense does that make?
None.
That's like,
none.
Let's say, like, the JFK murders.
Right.
Like, people, let's just say, like the mainstream theory that the lone gunman, but there's all this evidence surrounding that there was maybe 3 people on the grassy knoll, but there's all these people out here saying that it was aliens from outer space that were on the grassy knoll. So that hijacked this scenario. So we couldn't even talk about the grassy knoll.
That doesn't even make sense.
So no, it doesn't at all. So that you would think that would be like, no, we need to talk more about it to disprove these dumbasses.
Exactly.
And say this is a possibility, but you guys are dumbasses.
Let's look at the alien point of view.
Yeah, let's see how much dumbasses these are.
Exactly.
But that wouldn't it make you just revert back to the least likely actual scenario of, well, we're just going to stick with the lone gunman thing because these guys are talking about aliens. So we got to stick with this story. It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
It's like, well, let's blame the conspiracy theorists for us not believing the conspiracy theories. I mean, I get conspiracy theories go way overboard.
Right. But being a lab leak is far from being overboard.
Yeah. Even an intentional lab leak isn't that overboard.
Right.
Knowing what we know about China, is it really that far-fetched? I mean, I don't think it's that disproven that they're killing their own people, like the Uyghurs over there, and harvesting their organs. I don't think that's very disputed and far-fetched. So why is it far-fetched to say these people would intentionally release a virus?
And also, it is well known in China that they cheap shot all kinds of safety regulations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we know that they don't wear proper, protection, and they don't use proper protective,
equipment.
Right. And so is it hard to believe that somebody dropped the ball and
dropped the bat
or dropped the bat and was not wearing the proper material and got infected and then went out and got everybody else?
in a lab like that, you see it in movies all the time. They
Yes.
accidentally puncture their glove, and
Yeah.
it's just like,
and
well,
they're
we
like,
just,
oh, well, I'm not going to say anything to anybody.
Yeah,
I'm going to go home.
What did I watch? There was some.
That happens on The Stand. Did you ever see The
I don't
Stand
think
with
so.
Stephen King?
It's on.
I mean,
every-
that's how
Oh,
that disease got out.
It was one of the Planet of the Apes movies.
Oh,
I one of the newer Planet of the Apes. I think the origin story of it.
okay.
This guy accidentally exposed himself or something. Not
Different movie. Different movie.
Not
Whoa.
like Bill Clinton exposed himself, but
Yeah.
somehow was exposed to the virus.
Yeah.
And ended up going
Yeah.
home and spreading it. So I
Yeah.
mean, it happens in every sci-fi
It does.
movie.
Yeah.
It doesn't even take nefarious act to be like, oops, I accidentally punctured my
And
glove.
He's like,
with...
well, I'm not going to say anything because I want to go home.
Yes, exactly. I don't want to get quarantined. So, but it's also not crazy far-fetched and bad faith conversation to say it's China. China,
right.
I mean, they're not that great of people.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
right.
we say that Syrians, like gas-throwing people.
Yeah.
Is that us being racist
Right.
towards Syrians?
No.
It's saying there's some shitty Syrians that,
Yeah.
I mean, we
History
didn't say it.
makes that case.
Our government said it to go to. I mean, if
Yeah.
and that's gonna kind of be a good space, I guess, to transition. When it helps the narrative to go to war against a country, then it is fine to say,
Yeah.
well, their government would do
Right.
something shitty, and that's not racist because it helped us go to war with them.
Right.
And so that kind of brings me to, I guess that's a good transition point. Why would the FBI of all people come out and say
Right.
that this is most likely a lab leak?
Yeah, I mean, doesn't FBI technically deal in domestic?
Yeah, they do.
Items.
Very.
So why would they even be looking into it?
Why, yeah, what's the FBI even doing over there?
Exactly.
Or where are they getting their information from? I got to shift notes because I shifted faster than I wanted to.
Oh, gotcha.
So the media is shifting the blame rather
Mm-hmm.
than doubling down on it, which is weird to me. You'd think if it was as far-fetched as they said a year ago, when one agency, even two agencies, but one being the Department of Energy, who really doesn't have any say in
Right.
what goes on here. These two agencies come out and they're like, we think it was a lab leak. And the scientists still haven't shifted their opinion. The scientists we've been told to trust for the last 3 years.
That were paid off.
The other 80% of the government hasn't shifted their opinion
Right.
necessarily.
There's still no consensus.
There's still no consensus. Why is the media even having to kind of twist their narrative instead of just doubling down and be like, well, obviously it's the FBI and they're fucking wrong.
Yeah.
Or they got some piece of, or they're biased or something.
Yeah.
Well, there's a Trump supporter in the FBI. Obviously, he's going to say that. You know how they do things. Well, like, why would the media shift the blame so quickly?
Right.
So freaking quickly.
Yeah.
Rather than just doubling down or at least being like, are we really going to believe the FBI, guys? The scientists are
Right.
still saying this.
Yeah, I mean, they won't even check out Biden's house, right?
Right. What if it's because it's not about COVID at all? Because that's the only scenario I can come to terms with is it has nothing to do with COVID. It
Yes.
has everything to do with we want to go to war with China.
Yeah.
Because I got this article. This is from the World Socialist website. So it's not
Interesting.
somebody we would typically agree with, and it's clearly very biased and very
Yeah.
opinionated. But it bluntly says things how I would think. Instead of just beating around the bush, they're like,
Right.
obviously we're doing this because we want to go to war.
Right.
And so let me read this. It says, apparently the U.S. a couple weeks ago quadrupled their troops in Taiwan. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Says the U.S. is sending troops to Taiwan after. Remember, we talked about a general threatening war with China by 2025. I think we brought that up. I think it was in our China balloon episode where we're like, well, this guy said this, so that's kind of sketchy. This general's like, I think we're gonna go to war with China by 2025. It's just a random number I thought of. 2025 says the United States will quadruple the number of U.S. forces stationed on Taiwan, which China claims as its own territory, in an effort to provoke a war with Beijing along the lines of the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine. So you see how they're just going all in on. They're not like, this could potentially provoke. They're like, they're only doing it to provoke China, which I think probably.
That makes sense to me, too.
Not probably.
Definitely.
Definitely. The only reason they would send more troops to China is to provoke China.
I mean, look at Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. Just like they did in Ukraine. The United States is actively turning Taiwan into a military base just dozens of miles off the coast of mainland China, with the aim of goading China into invading the island and painting the ensuing war as the result of Chinese aggression. Kind of like Ukraine.
Right.
The only thing China has that Russia didn't was a virus. Russia hasn't, that I know of, released too many viruses.
Not yet.
The announcement gives context to the Biden administration's unprecedented decision to attack a Chinese research balloon that had been blown over the United States earlier this month, the first time any aircraft had been shot down over U.S. territory or its coastal waters.
I like the narrative on that.
Yes. Now, the funny thing is they do mention that he's quadrupling the presence.
Yeah.
In reality, that's 100 to 200 troops. It's still not that much because we only had like 30 there to begin with.
Oh, gotcha.
And so for him to be like, U.S. is quadrupling, you're kind of conflating this a little bit, but still.
Yeah, it's still troop movement.
Yeah, we're still instigating to a certain level. When we go, we're definitely shifting from, well, the U.S. abides by China, Taiwan's part of China, that whole agreement thing we talked about. Like, our official stance is Taiwan is not Taiwan, it's part of China. And so I think we've definitely made a point to say we're not standing by that agreement anymore. Right. It says the attack and the media frenzy that preceded it was used in an attempt to whip up public hysteria and fear of China, justifying a massive U.S. military buildup on the other side of the world. We're talking about the balloons that we talked about 2 episodes. Yeah. In January, General Mike Minihan, head of Air Mobility Command, sent a letter to his subordinates saying, "My gut tells me we will fight in 2025." Is it his gut or intel that's telling him that we'll fight in 2025? And urging them to get their personal affairs in order in preparation for a conflict with China.
Wow. How would you like to get that news?
Yes. Write up your wills.
Yep. Right back home, boys.
Next
this is
of kin. Go get married. Says in both May and September of last year, U.S. President Biden categorically asserted the U.S. will be willing to go to war with China if it invaded Taiwan. The announcement of the troop surge follows the passage of the National Defense Authorization Act at the end of last year. It effectively rendered the U.S.'s decades-old One China policy, that's what I was talking about, under which Washington de facto recognized the Beijing regime as the sole government of all of China, including Taiwan, a dead letter by sending direct military aid to Taipei. Knowing it is acting without a mandate from the American population, the Biden administration is seeking to carry out the massive expansion of U.S. troops on Taiwan with minimal public attention. In a choreographed series of steps repeated anytime the White House takes action that moves the world closer to nuclear annihilation, the White House leaked its plan to increase U.S. troops in Taiwan to the press on Thursday, refused to comment on the initial reports, and will likely formally announce the move in Friday night news dump. In an article entitled U.S. to Expand Troop Presence in Taiwan from Training Against Chinese Threats, the Wall Street Journal reported the U.S. is markedly increasing the number of troops deployed to Taiwan, more than quadrupling the current number, to bolster a training program for the island's military. Now, we've had this discussion with other countries before. Yeah. What happens if China sends troops to Hawaii to train their troops in case the U.S. says, you are still part of us? What act of aggression, maybe?
A little bit, yeah. A little bit more than a balloon.
Or like California, which I say California. They can have California.
Right, yeah.
But what if Hawaii is like, you know what, we don't want to be part of this, and China's like, we're going to help you out. Yeah, I feel like the U.S.
a little bit
would see that as maybe an act of war of some
feelings.
sort. Yeah, a little bit. Says all factions of the U.S. financial oligarchy are united behind preparations for a military conflict with China. On Wednesday, Republican Representative Mike Gallagher of Wisconsin, who chairs the House new select committee on China declared himself even more convinced that the time to arm Taiwan to the teeth was yesterday. The media is actively working to promote U.S. war planning against China. Earlier this month, Chuck Todd, moderator of Meet the Press, asked Democratic Senator Cory Booker, are you going to be supporting whatever it takes to prepare for war with China over Taiwan? Do we need to do more to prepare for the potential? The Journal wrote the U.S. plans to deploy between 100 and 200 troops to the island in the coming months, up from roughly 30 a year ago. It says the larger force will expand a training program the Pentagon has taken pains not to publicize as the U.S. works to provide Taipei with capabilities it needs to defend itself without provoking Beijing. What are you going to say?
I was going to say, how would you like to be those 30 troops?
Yeah. It's like, oh, just hang out over here.
Well, you guys got this. We got your back.
Says the United States has seized upon the February 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine to massively expand its defense spending, targeting China no less than Russia. Now, didn't even think about that.
What's up?
We found a reason to ramp up our military without actively being in a war.
Right. Yeah.
Because of this whole Ukraine-Russia thing. What if it had nothing to do with Ukraine? It's just like, we just want to increase military spending because we know China is coming and we want to get ahead of the ball. So let's throw China into war and keep increasing military spending and blaming it on Ukraine. But at the end of the day, it's really just a reason to expand our military.
That
because
makes sense.
If war was just to, out of nowhere, kick off in China, I mean, we decreased military spending.
Yeah.
So much in the last couple of years.
And look at it this way. Not only that, but we've also dramatically increased the militaries of some of our Eastern European buddies.
Yep. Derek Ambrose says, plot twist, all the troops are going there are from the Coast Guard. Now, let's see. Let's keep going. It says the bill, it says the budget, because it's talking about the NDAA.
Yeah.
It's $45 billion larger than requested by the White House, which was in turn larger than requested by the Pentagon. So it was $858 billion. So Congress voted for more than the White House requested, which was more than the Pentagon even. The people, you know, in charge of the military, they're like, we need this much.
And they're like, you know what? Take triple that.
Yeah, and the White House was like, actually, we probably need this much. And then Congress was like, well, fuck it. We'll take all of it.
But nobody decided to mention that red flag.
The budget marks an 8% increase over last year and a 30% increase in military spending over the 2016 Pentagon budget. The massive surge in military spending comes as the typical U.S. household saw its real income fall by 3% in the last 12 months. The bill increases funding for every single military department and weapons program. So it's all about Ukraine, right?
Right.
That we're not sending troops to.
Absolutely.
But it's giving $32 billion to the Navy for new warships. It also authorized purchase of a further 36 F-35 aircrafts, each costing about $89 million. This year's NDAA takes concrete steps towards preparing for a future conflict with China by investing in American hard power. So they just came right out and said it. They're not even hiding it. They're like, no, we're ramping up for possibility conflict with China, strengthening American posture in the Indo-Pacific, and supporting our allies. That's always the go-to, is supporting our allies.
Freedom.
So they come out and they say, well, first of all, a month ago was like, you know, I could see a conflict in China. Kind of, you know, dipping their toe, like, checking the water, see how people respond. People are like, that's stupid. Then all of a sudden, Chinese balloons are flying over. Right. Again, we talked about it for 2 episodes. Chinese balloons everywhere in the sight, and we're shooting them down over after they cross
the whole country.
Yeah, I mean, they had the balls to send their balloons across our entire country, and we shot it down.
Yeah.
And then it's coming out. The FBI's like, we've known for a while now. This was leaked from the Chinese lab. What are they
building your case?
They're trying to see what they got to do to shift our emotions towards, because when he comes out, it's like, I could see us going to war with China, and we're like, no, not so much. What if they sent a balloon over? And we're like, maybe, but no. What if we just told them the truth for a change and told them that China leaked this virus that affected their
Yeah.
lives from a lab.
And the media is like, fuck, but we can work with it.
Yeah, we got this. It was Trump.
Yeah,
It
right.
was Donald
Yeah.
Trump. Obviously, it's Donald Trump. If this isn't enough here, like I said, that general said by 2025, the military ramps up its spending. We're sending more troops to Taiwan.
Right.
If that's not enough to convince you that we really want war with China, what about this? The U.S. Marines are preparing for a Pacific Island fight in California. I mean, we've been doing desert training.
Right. Yes. For years.
For years because of Iraq, Afghanistan, and shit
Yeah.
like that. All of a sudden, we shift courses, and we're planning Pacific Island fights. Still in the desert in 29 Palms,
Right.
but
Yeah.
but
Well,
I
you know,
mean,
it's versatile.
we got to repurpose the because this says in 29 Palms, California. It says sitting around plastic folding table in a dusty tent, half a dozen officers of the Hawaii-based 3rd Marine Littoral Regiment took a very short break from days of fighting on little to no sleep. The war, they said, was going well. The unit, newly created and innovative in nature, was facing its toughest test yet, a 10-day mock battle across Southern California, where a series of military bases played the role of an island chain. Though outnumbered by the regiment it was fighting, the team from Hawaii had an edge. The team was built to fight on islands and along coastal shorelines, the littoral region, in military parlance. It had also been given special equipment and the freedom to innovate, developing new tactics to figure out one of the service's highest priorities: how to fight a war against Chinese forces in their own backyard and win. We're planning for it. Although far from the ocean, the base at 29 Palms offers 1,200 square miles to train, more than all the Marine Corps' other bases combined. Days ago, the two sides were dropped off here about 12 miles from each other. Then it was time to fight. No live ammunition was used, obviously, but that was essentially the only rule. Evaluators alongside graded everything they did, assessing hits and misses and pulling troops out of the action when they were killed. Over the next 2 years, the unit will have a relentless schedule with about 4 or 5 times as many exercises as most infantry regiments. Its next big test will be in the Philippines in April. Notice that right there. Over the next 2 years, we're ramping up 4 to 5 times as many military exercises for this island training. What's in 2 years? 2025.
Right. Yeah.
They predicted 2025. Now they're specifically planning for 2025. What the fuck's going?
Yeah.
It's like they've scheduled a war.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, how do you schedule a war?
China's very particular about that.
Well, they're like, we really want to go to war with China, but we're not quite ready.
Yeah.
How long will it take? Well, it'll take about 2 years. I'm predicting by 2025, China's going to do something stupid, or by 2025, it's going to come out that this absolutely was, the lab leak absolutely was a bioweapon. Because for now, they can't drop that on us right now that China released this bioweapon to disrupt Western civilization, because we would potentially insist on war now, and they're not ready for war now. It's going to take them 2 years. So we got to ease the public into it. Then by 2024-ish, we got to drop the truth bomb's going to come out that this was obviously a bioterror weapon.
So if you're the Joint Chief guy who warned your counterpart in China about Trump possibly launching a nuke, how do you drop hints for this?
I think they're dropping the hints. When the media is like,
yeah,
they're specifically training to fight how to fight a war against Chinese forces in their own backyard.
Right? Be like,
and win.
Hey, Han.
Did you read this report?
Yeah, right.
I'm sending you over a link.
You got to read this, man. 2 years. Can you hit us a Tuesday, maybe March 3rd? Yeah, it's ridiculous.
What do you think?
First
of all, should we be going to war with China? We've had this question.
Well, all right. First of all, no, because we're still in deep with Russia, right? I mean, whether we are or we're not, we are, right? Whether we say we are or not. the other thing you got to look at is 2025, God willing, Biden won't be president anymore.
No, but the Republicans are pushing this Chinese narrative more than anything.
Well, that's true, but so
we
say Trump gets in, right? Because
Trump hates China. Trump would absolutely go to war with China. Maybe that's the plan.
And so does Trump have more credibility? He's like, well, I told you it's China, right? Does this kind of give him a leg up?
I mean, possibly.
Right?
Depends on how much comes out.
And so then he's president, and then he's like, well, shit, you got me set up to go to war with China.
That's what I wanted all along, bitches.
That's why I left office.
I just want to build a Trump Tower in China, and they won't let me. So I want to go to war with China. And he's like, I've been saying all along it's China. And then that's what his new re-election is on. It's like, I told you it was China and China and China. And then we go to war with China because Trump gets reelected. Maybe they put Biden in because Trump wanted Trump Tower in Beijing so much that they were like, look, we're looking at like 2025. He's like, absolutely not. We're going to war now. And they're like, can we just get rid? Like, can we just sideline him for like 4 years?
We'll bring him back
4
when
years.
we need him.
And yeah, we'll bring him back. When is the next election? 24?
2024.
And so he takes office when?
2025.
And China war kicks off when?
2025.
It's amazing how these cards
Right?
are just like stacking up
Yeah.
so perfectly. And this war gaming is set to take place on a span of just like 2 years to put us right up to like 2025. And I don't know. There's so much here.
Yeah.
The problem is, a war with China would be unlike anything that we've ever seen.
Fuck yeah.
Anything. I think it would be even worse than World War II.
Yeah.
At least nothing we've seen since World War II.
Yeah.
It absolutely would not be like Ukraine for us, because
Right.
it's not like we're just going to send a bunch of weapons to a tiny little island. No, we're not even going to be just on an island. We won't be able to be on the island of Taiwan defending it. We would
Right.
absolutely have to attack mainland China, which
Right.
has
Never
it ever been done?
No.
By the
Well,
West,
Japan
at
did.
least?
No. The West has never attacked mainly in China. Yeah.
This is not something we want. This is like the reason why I don't want to get too hyped up in this lab leak thing, because I know it is specifically for a reason here.
Right.
And the reason isn't like, oh, we just want to be transparent. It's we want to turn the tide against people's public perception of China.
Yeah.
So let's get everybody pissed off again about this lab leak thing. So up in the upcoming years, I mean, what else has to happen? Because I don't think could just be a lab leak.
No.
Even if it's like a bioterrorist, would that be enough for the U.S. to go to war if it was just like...
I would say so.
Maybe.
I mean, what if China nukes Taiwan?
I think there would have to be like an active attack somewhere.
There would be.
On top of the biological
warfare. There would have to be an
warfare.
active aggression on top of the balloons and the biological warfare.
Yeah, but I mean, they've got it planned out.
Yeah.
So specifically planned out to exactly 2025.
But I mean, in the next year or so, they're probably going to find a number of other Chinese undercover agents that have been installed in our government. Right?
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, Pelosi probably.
Oh, God, that's gross. Pelosi and her husband in his underwear.
Yes.
We're having that. Maybe the guy that attacked Paul Pelosi was a Chinese spy. I don't know.
But I mean, honestly, I mean, what? Her kid is installed in a corporation in Taiwan. So if he comes home, you know shit's going down.
That is true. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And, like she went and visited Taiwan, and we're like, what the hell is going on?
Right.
I got to thinking, the U.S. has kind of been provoking China with the war in Russia and Ukraine. Again, I don't think Russia and Ukraine is all about Russia and Ukraine.
No, it never is.
There's always a bigger picture. Yeah. And the U.S. has been saying so many times, like, if you support Russia, that's it. If you don't do it, don't support. And China's like, we weren't going to support Russia. We don't want the shit in our backyard.
Yeah.
And the U.S. is like, well, yeah, just imagine what'll happen if you do support Russia. What if the U.S. was trying to push China to support Russia so we could somehow observe their military capabilities?
I can see that.
Because what example of Chinese military capabilities have we been able to observe in the last couple decades?
Yeah.
It's not like they're, I mean, yeah, they...
India, right?
But it's not like we're seeing like large-scale military troop movements or weapons capabilities or anything like that.
Naval operations outside their little exercises.
So if we can entice China to, or provoke China to help Russia out a little bit, we'll at least get an idea of their capabilities. So then we can further prepare for 2025 and prepare for our war in China. I don't know. There's so many what ifs here, and my brain, the least important thing on my brain right now with all of this is where COVID-19 came from.
Yeah, because I mean, let's be honest, doesn't matter anymore. I mean, we've kind of passed that hump.
Like we were saying, it's like the government's not going to give you information unless there's a reason for giving it.
Exactly. Right.
And it's like it's like why would they come out now and say this when they had already done so much effort and the majority of the people were like, oh, it's natural origins. Why wouldn't they just let a sleeping dog lie or whatever the saying is?
People have forgotten about it, right? Most people have gone on with their lives.
It's like, oh, by the way, lab leak, and we're like, oh,
right, yeah,
in China, their lab leaks,
right? Exactly. Why? Yeah, there's no particular reason to do it other than just to get people pissed off.
Derek Ambrose says, a bioterrorism event that brings down 3 buildings that hold FBI and other agencies' documents perfectly into their footprints as if it were a controlled demolition. I feel like I've seen that one before, Derek.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they used the same playbook twice.
Like, wait, what?
They're notorious. It's like, it worked once, guys.
Yeah, right.
We could do this again. And then provoke a war in China this time. Obviously, Osama bin Laden's hiding in China. He was never dead all this time. He was hiding in China.
Yeah.
And they were
that wouldn't
harboring
surprise
him.
me either.
Oh, none of it surprises me. So back to the lab leak.
Yes.
Do you think there's some ulterior motive in the very least here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think the war is the most likely scenario or reason for it? Or
definitely painting China as the bad guy. Definitely trying to get public support to get rally and be like, hey, we got to go get those guys.
Is there any other? Do you have any other ideas what it could be besides that? Maybe just distractions, like the Chinese balloons.
Possibly.
What else is going on?
But I mean that's a big backtrack.
Right, that's huge backpedaling. Yeah. And for the media, to not be like, what are you talking about? You're the fucking FBI. Why should we take you? Why should we take your side over the scientists? Which several agency online media are saying that. It's like, but the intelligence services aren't scientists. So can we really, who do we trust more? But then you have MSNBC and The View. They're like, well, if it wasn't for these conspiracy theorists, maybe we would have looked into it. And so they're already
taking it serious.
Retracting this shit. It's just like, why are they retracting so quickly and reversing so quickly on this thing?
Yeah, because they're trying to push the narrative too. Yeah,
and it's got to be slow though. We can't just
absolutely.
We can't just drop a truth bomb on people. Yeah. We got to slowly.
Yeah, maybe a plane will get shot down, right?
Could be over Taiwan.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's always a good one.
Actually, it'll probably be because how many ships do we send through the Taiwan Strait?
A ship get blown up.
All the shit. We just gotta freaking do Vietnam all over again. What was the Tonkin incident?
Yeah, right.
Just another ship sink. Right, What's another ship?
Absolutely.
Just sink a ship.
Exercises happen all the time in that strait.
Just happened that ship was on its final tour, and it was about to be retired after this, and they were just about to have a grand ceremony, and there happened to be nobody on the ship at the time. I won't say that. All the
yeah.
All right. All the FBI agents got off. We'll just say FBI agents got off the ship in time. They just happened to not be. All the special forces happened to not be, and only the little
something's got to be the fuse,
bucklers or whatever they call them.
Or Biden gets assassinated.
I mean, why not?
I mean, they were hoping he'd get blown up in Ukraine, and it didn't happen.
Is Biden going to make a trip to Taiwan soon, you think?
You
think
would not
we got
surprise me.
a planned trip for Biden in Taiwan?
I can see that coming in the future.
If Biden makes a trip to Taiwan, you heard it here first, guys. Derek says, torpedo our own ship and sink it twice.
Yeah, right.
Twice to the back of the head.
And then wrap an extension cord around it.
I don't know. All I can think of is they are really trying to push us to some sort of... They're trying to sway public persona against the Chinese again, which... Wouldn't that be racist a little bit? Isn't it xenophobic to go to war against the Chinese people?
Kind of, yes.
I mean, wouldn't that be xenophobic? I mean, we are targeting a specific people group to go to war with.
Now,
isn't that
what will be interesting to see? Okay,
wait till Trump calls it the China War.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we're gonna be like, we can't say that. You can't say.
Do they
that.
ban TikTok again? Right? I mean, wouldn't that be next?
They probably just buy it. Like, they just acquire TikTok.
Right.
What do they call that? Like. In war, where they just take it, they just steal it.
Right. Yeah.
It's ours now. Yeah, they'll just steal TikTok.
I did see an article, and I thought it was odd that they said that ABC has removed all Chinese-made cameras from the building.
Well, I mean, that's in the John McCain Act. They're not allowed to have that shit.
Okay.
They're not allowed to have certain chips in there. That's why Hikvision, we can't really find Hikvision if it has a specific chipset.
Yeah.
Well, it's... Government projects can't have... It's not like it's illegal here.
Yeah.
Because I was bidding this project, and it had a government grant, and I had to follow the John McCain Act, which said no Chinese shit in your shit.
Right.
So they can't legally, because the government buildings cannot have Chinese-made cameras or security equipment on their property now. So,
so no, I mean, that doesn't surprise me, though, that ABC would make that move.
Right, exactly. So,
but I can see more and more going like that. When Hollywood starts making movies where we're at war with China, then that shit's going down.
Well, ABC's probably getting funded by the government, which
that's probably true. They all are.
Yeah, if they're publicly funded by the government, getting paid off by the government, they probably have to abide by the John McCain Act.
That's probably true.
That should say something about who's paying for your media. I don't know. Do you give any credit to this FBI report or the Department of Energy report?
I mean, I think they're accurate. I mean, this is stuff I feel like we've known for years. Again, they're just now declaring it because they're trying to get people's attention.
Yeah, it's big.
Yeah. Yeah, Huawei Telecom.
The only time the government releases the truth is when they want to lie somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
They want to push you into a lie,
or they want to twist that truth to fit their narrative.
Oh, obviously, yeah.
So.
That's all I got on this. Any final thoughts on the lab leak?
It'll be interesting to see where it goes, if anywhere. In the very least, again, they're just trying to make China into the big boogeyman.
Derek says, we're still pulling down Huawei Telecom gear. Total pain in the ass. Yes.
Yeah, Huawei, I think, makes Hikvision.
Huawei, Hikvision, what's the other one? Dahua. Yep. So all of them are the same. They're ran by the Chinese. So I guess for the first time, I'm going to say, don't make a big deal about this.
Yeah.
Even though we did a whole episode on it.
Right.
They want you to make a big deal about this lab leak.
But that was a year ago we made a big deal about it.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying we're doing a whole episode right now about it. But
that's because there's bigger...
They want you to get up in arms about this. Don't give them the satisfaction. Do not let this persuade you to think that China is the big bad guy. They could be the big bad guy.
But no bigger than us.
Yeah, no bigger than us, and we don't want to go to war with China.
No.
At all.
No.
Like, I actually, when this information came out, I actually looked up what the draft age requirements were because I was like, oh, shit, can I get redrafted?
Am I still eligible?
I think it's legally right now like 20, what is it, 18 to 35, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm out of that. But if worst comes to worst, they'll
call you in.
They change that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
They'll be like up to 55, up to 75. Bring your grandpas. We all need to fight the Chinese because the Chinese just have.
You got to do your part.
Yes, obviously. don't buy into this bullshit.
Yeah.
It's probably not true.
It's not a win.
It's not.
If you're thinking like, yes, we got them, we don't.
If you're thinking us conspiracy theorists are vindicated because they came out and said, yes, it was a lab leak, nobody is ever vindicated when it comes to the government releasing truth bombs. You're not vindicated. They're just trying to use you and your thoughts of vindication to persuade public opinion more.
Yeah.
So you are not vindicated at all. When it came out that vaccines weren't all they were cracked up to be, were we vindicated on that? No, nothing happened. Nothing has happened. People are still getting 6, 7, 8 shots. No vindication there. There is no vindication when it comes to this. So don't feel like the government is like somehow saying you were right, because they're not.
Because they're not going to take this where they should take it, all the way down the rabbit hole to all the various U.S. agents and medias and politicians that are involved in this cover-up.
Mhm.
They're not taking it there. It
No.
stops at China.
Yeah.
Period.
Or maybe Fauci at the
Right,
as
yeah.
far as it goes, because
Yeah.
because
He's old.
He's not good at covering his tracks.
Yeah.
That's all the time we have. Tell us what you think. Tell us, what's your thoughts behind the reason that the FBI of all people and the Department of Energy of all organizations would come out and say, you might have been right. Like, do you think it's for transparency reasons? I doubt it, or you wouldn't be listening to the show.
Right.
Do you think there's some further motivation? Do you think they want us to go to war with China? Because I would think a country in our standing would not want to go to war, would be doing everything in their power to not go to war with like China or Russia. But it seems like every step of the way, we're just trying to provoke them, these major countries, into these conflicts. So tell us what you think.
You know, there is but there's a deeper angle too. Well,
I guess
mean,
we're still going.
Okay. Well, I mean, apparently, the Great Reset by 2030.
Yeah.
Right?
I thought about that.
You got to clear 2 of the biggest anti-globalist countries out of the way.
And a lot of people in the process.
Right? And so why not go to a war and take out Russia and China?
The pandemic didn't take out nearly enough people.
Right?
We tried to.
And so we got to up the ante, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if Russia and China were out of the way, what is stopping a globalist agenda?
Well, Russia, China, and the U.S. is going to take a major hit too, and they're not necessarily the
I would
government.
say the majority of the United States people are,
but the populace is very anti-globalist.
Yeah. So,
it's going to cause this giant world war scenario where there is no winning, and some major player like the WEF or the UN or somebody has to come in and say, guys, this ain't working. We got it from here.
We got to mediate, and we got to put you guys.
We got
in
it from
place.
here. Yeah, I mean that's highly a possibility. The end game, like China, war with China is in the immediate future, and that is just to push us towards this. Let's break down all the barriers as we know it, and all the governments as we know it. And how do we do that? We disrupt them through this
thermonuclear war.
Yes, absolutely. Once again, that's all the time we have for tonight.
On that note,
happy thoughts. Let us know how you feel and what you think about all this shit. The comment section is always open. We have a Facebook forum called the Breaking the Bell Forum. Otherwise, I like to hang out on Twitter. It's where I spend most of my social media time, which is very little these days, actually. But most of it's
there much either.
Most of it's on Twitter. You can find us at our handle, which is @BreakTheBellPod. Tell us what you think. Share this far and wide with all your friends and family and grandmas and grandpas, all the people that are going to be drafted in the China war. Just share it so we can become famous and get on lists and stuff. And we can tell you, in 2025, we can tell you we were right.
That's right.
Because we're going to come back. I'm going to hold you to this and be like, you know what? We predicted this.
Yeah.
Actually, they predicted it.
We're broadcasting from a bunker.
Yes. We just want to broadcast our final broadcast to say we were right. And then, only then will I feel vindicated.
That's good.
That's all the time I got. Hope you all have a great rest of your week. We will catch you next time. We will, I think, be doing the early morning show, the 2 Scoops morning show, some point this week. We didn't at all last week because I had vacation and he had other things. So I'm not sure what day. I think tentatively we're switching the days up on that because it wasn't working out quite for him. So stand by. At some point, you will be getting the Two Scoops morning show with myself and Dan Smotz of the System Is Down podcast. It's at 7 a.m. on an undisclosed day. I'll let you know. Otherwise, be back here next week, same time, same channel, every Monday night, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time for another doozy, as long as we haven't been blown up or Clintoned by then. So,
not for the Clinton. I mean, fingers crossed for the Clinton, not for getting blown up.
Oh, all right. Have a great rest of your week. We'll talk to you next time. You screwed up my perfect outro. You're like, let me fuck that up for everybody. Have a great rest of your week. We'll talk to you next time. Goodbye.
The Break the Bell podcast is brought to you by you. So pat yourself on the back, because without you, we would be talking to ourselves. A special thanks to our Patreon members, Justin Zielinski, Remzo Martinez, Stephanie Parker, and T.O. Jacobson. A shout out to our sponsors, Run Your Mouth Coffee, the On the Run podcast, and Goulash Media. If you'd like to help support us, visit patreon.com/breakthebell or buy our garbage at breakthebell.bigcartel.com. Get back here next week and let us continue to invade your ear holes. And as always, never stop talking.